am. I'm Pauline Grove-Jones, and I'll be chairing this meeting of the Development Committee. If you haven't attended one of these meetings before, the officers who provide and present our reports are either on screen or sit either side of me at the top table. And in the central area are the members of the committee. To my left, I have.
Good morning, Chairman. I am Philip Rosen, and I am the Assistant Director of Planning. Good morning, members. Good morning, members of the public.
And to my right. That's not working, is it? Okay. Before we start, just like to warn you that if the fire alarms go off, this will actually be a correct fire alarm. So I would ask you to exit the chamber either to the left of me or to the right. Please use the stairs. The officers will be there to guide you. Don't use the lift, and assemble at in the car park or in the front of the building by the flagpole. If you have a mobile phone, will you please now turn them off? Please make sure they're turned off. And if we are still going at 11, there will be a break. The facilities, toilets, etc., are out on this first floor landing. Let's now go to the agenda. Have I any apologies for absence and details of substitutes, Linda?
Thank you, Chair. I have an apology for absence from Councillor Kershaw with Councillor Toy as his substitute. Also apologies from Councillors Stockton and Varley, but no substitutes for them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think the reason, normally I get quite irritated when there are no substitutes, but I think we're hitting the peak holiday season at the moment, and a lot of our members are away who are on the committee. Now, if I could ask you to have a look at item 3, to approve the correct record for the meetings of the 29th of July. Have you all received the copy of it? I did ask Linda to send them round again. Are there any corrections to the minutes that anybody has found? Save me going through. Could I have someone to approve then? Councillor Pearce, and someone to second, Councillor Brown. Could I ask you to put your hands up if you are in approval? It's unanimous. Now, any items of urgent business?
None to report, Chairman.
Okay. The order of the business will be as it stands. So we will start with Salt House when we get there. Declarations of interest. Has anybody any declarations of interest here, pecuniary or non-pecuniary? No? No, right, okay. So now we go to the officers' reports. Our first officer is Bruno Fraga da Costa. Ooh, I think I almost got that right then. And he will be presenting planning application Salt House PF/21/0/0666, which is on page 3. Bruno, over to you.
Thank you, Chair.
You can start.
So the planning application, it's PF/21/0666. So it's one boom styles in Salt House. So the proposal is for the erection of single-story rear extension to replace a conservatory, vertical timber cladding over brickwork on the rear elevation, There's a door opening a north elevation of the dwelling and some external alterations to the semi-detached garage, including a roof light and flue. So this is a part retrospective application. So the site is located within the countryside designated area, within as well the Salthouse conservation area, within an area of outstanding natural beauty, and within the landscape character area, rolling heath and arable land. So the site is located there in red, highlighted in red, in the middle of the lower down on the drawing. Then here we have, on the left-hand side, we have the residential development within which the dwelling is located and marked in red, highlighted with its boundaries. On the left-hand side, you see the main street, cross street, and then highlighted a bit in light blue, you see bloom styles, which then the road has access to all the other properties. Right-hand side, you can see an existing conservatory, which has been demolished to allow for the erection of the single-story rear extension. So this conservatory is all glazed, standard conservatory. So here it's the existing proposed site plans. On the left-hand side, the existing conservatory has already been demolished. Some work's already been carried out, and on the right-hand side, you can see what it is proposed, marked in blue. So the single story extension, and then the roof light there on the garage as well. This is existing on the left. It's the ground floor and proposed ground floor on the right hand side. Again, marked in blue is what it is proposed. So the sunroom here, and then some other alterations, closing this door, opening door there, then door there as well. This is the first floor plan. So again, on the left-hand side, it's the proposed, and right is the existing, and on the right-hand side is what is proposed, with the roof plan of the conservatory, or the proposed conservatory in blue. Again, this is a roof plan. Left is existing, and on the right it is what is proposed. And this is the main elevation facing west, so it's minor alterations. So you have some alterations to the fascia and also to the rainwater goods. The rest remains the same. Then this is a south elevation as you come into the housing development through the road. So you can see on the left-hand side is existing. Conservatory has already been demolished. And on the right-hand side, you can see there is closing this door, which is being carried out currently, and then also the conservatory, which is being built at the moment. So on the right-hand side, marked in blue. And this is on the left-hand side, existing elevation, and then on the right-hand, on the left-hand side, existing elevation, pardon, and then on the right-hand side is what is proposed. So the proposal is to introduce some large cladding on this elevation, on the east elevation, so across the whole elevation, and also there's a vertical large cladding on the proposed rear extension here as well, marked in blue, and then minor alterations to the ground floor as well. This is the north elevation, so facing the neighboring garden to the north. So on the left hand side you see existing conservatory has already been demolished, and then on the right hand side you can see what is proposed. So open this door here on the north elevation, and then also this is the conservatory with this window, high level window here proposed. So these are the existing proposed floor plans of the garage. So on the left hand side, you see is existing garage. We have some internal partition already existing internally. And on the right hand side, you can see there is the conversion of this garage to study space with some bathroom and then some storage space as well. There is also they want to open this as well, have a window here, window aperture on this elevation here. So the alterations, external alterations are marked in blue. So it's this alteration here to the frontage of the garage, and also the introduction of this window here. This is a section of the garage, so existing on the left hand side, and proposed section on the right hand side. So there's the flue there, And then there's also roof lights, and then alterations here to the main entrance of the garage. They're all marked in blue. And the interior space is just as it is on the plan, so you can see here on the section. These are the elevations. So on the left-hand side is existing. So the right-hand side, when you see two doors. The left door is owned by the applicant. The right door of the garage is owned by the neighbor. So this is divided in half. Left of the garage. Left of this is owns, the applicant owns left of it. Then the other right-hand side is owned by the neighbor. So you can see there on the right-hand side, there's the alterations to the existing doors of the garage. And then there's addition of a roof light and also a wood burner flue there on the back on the roof slope. And the existing left-hand side is existing south elevation of the garage. And then on the right-hand side is a proposed south elevation of the garage, which faces the garden. So again, there is that small aperture there, and then the flue and proposed roof light. This is another plan from the west elevation. So this is inside the garden. So you can see here on the left-hand side, so half of the garage on the left-hand side is owned by the neighbor, and half of the garage on the right-hand side is owned by the applicant. So the proposed alterations here, you can see that on the right-hand side, is just the flue that you can see here on this elevation. So these are some images of a street scene. So from Cross Street, Main Street, access to Bloomstiles. So you can see this is further down, marked in 1 where the photo was taken. So this photo is taken to the north, so you can see some other properties. This is taken facing south, number 2 there, marked on the left of the drawing. So this is the main elevation of the property on the right-hand side. Again, this is facing north. You can see the main elevation of the property and the neighboring dwellings to the north left. And here is, as you come into the housing development from the south, you can see the property south elevation with some alterations have been carried out already to the door there. And then you can see as well the extension that being built. These are some properties, neighboring properties located south. Again, neighboring properties located further to the east with the garages as well. And then these are the properties facing east, which are opposite of the site. So you can see dwellings with the garages. This is the garage. So left-hand side is owned by the applicant, right-hand side is owned by the neighbor, number 37. So this is existing. So here, just some other views of the dwelling here with the boundary wall. So previously and after development has started, alterations to the door there and direction of the rear extension. This is, you can see here left-hand side, an image of the demolition of the conservatory. You see the base is still there. And then in the middle image and the image on the right is just what it is proposed with large cladding. And here again, another view from the north base of the conservatory. And then you have the proposed extension here facing north of this window, high level window. And the last image on the right is from the neighboring garden, number 37 to the north. So some other images of the garage as well, left-hand side. And the last image on the right, it's what is currently being built. So the alterations to the garage door. This is some images from the interior of the site. You can see the garage. And these are the images of neighboring dwellings facing south and opposite as well. And this is a street scene, street view from neighboring dwelling facing immediately north of the site. So the key issues on this application are in relation to the design and the landscape impact. So there were concerns with the design and the use of the materials, the scale of the proposal. You Yeah, in relation to this, several alterations have been made. Initially we had black stain cladding, and that has been changed to a large cladding, which weathers with time, so it will turn to be silver with time. Will be more in keeping with the area. There is, from a conservation design point of view, there is no issues with the application. From a landscape point of view, the use of the materials are in keeping with the area. In relation to light spill, given that the previous conservatory that was existing on site, it was all glazed, so it is considered that the addition of this this proposed rear extension will have less light spill than the former conservatory. Again, there is no objections from landscape officer. An external light condition will be added to the decision notice in combination with the standard conditions. And that's the end of my presentation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Bruno. I now go to our speakers. I don't believe there's a communal parish speaker. So we have an objecting speaker, Joanna Latham. Well, if you'd like to come up here, and then Fiona will just show you which one. Second one in. Yes, but I don't think they're working. Got it? Right. You have 3 minutes, Mrs. Latham, and the famous egg timer will go off when you finish.
We are still concerned about light pollution. Yes, there was a conventional conservatory attached to number 1, but that was used in daytime and mainly in summer, whereas the new sunroom is designed as an integral part of the living area with the potential 24/7 use, and it's over 30% larger in its overall dimensions. We're concerned about significant increase in light spill from its 2 large roof windows, the completely glazed wall of the east side facing 5 and 7, the enlarged compared to plan rectangle window on the north side facing Cross Street. In the converted garage, a new, larger than shown on plans, Velux window has already been installed in the roof, plus additional south side windows and 2 windows in the new doors, also emitting additional light. All of this new glazing will have a significant detrimental impact on the dark skies quality of the area. We also object to the detailed proposals to convert the semi-detached garage. On the plans, it is referred to as a study, but this study has its own loo, basin and shower. There is also a sleeping platform. This suggests not a study, but more like a 4th bedroom or even a separate dwelling. The sleeping platform is directly below the large Velux window that faces east. It will look into 2 bedroom windows and number 5 with an impact on their privacy and light pollution. Such a 4th bedroom or separate dwelling would increase sleeping capacity of number 1 to potentially 8. And this will impact on the already limited car parking available within this corner of Bloomstiles and the knock-on concerns for necessary access by emergency vehicles or regular refuse collection, oil and other deliveries. The building work on the garage includes substantial changes to mains drainage, and it's nearly complete. We ask that a restriction should be placed to prevent this converted building being used for letting. We are particularly concerned about the potential pollution from the flue for the wood-burning stove planned for the converted garage. We urge that approval should not be granted for this, given the identified serious health concerns. The low chimney will be emitting fine particle PM2.5 pollution at the bedroom window height of 5 nearby properties. Wood burners are not the green energy most supposed. DEFRA in 2021 said pollution from these was one of the biggest sources of PM2.5 pollution, even 3 times greater than road traffic. These fine particles travel deep into the respiratory tract and lodge in organs, increasing the risk of asthma, lung cancer, and other serious diseases. And finally, we still consider the extensive wooden cladding proposed for the east side of number 1 to be totally out of keeping with the brick and flint character of Bloom Stars. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Latham. If you'd like to return to your
Thank you.
chair. Now, I do believe you've all had, the members, a statement from the agent for the owner of this property. Have you read it? Do you want another minute just to update yourselves? Can I make an assumption that you're all okay with this then? Right. This was the supporting statement, obviously. Now we go to the local member, Councillor Holliday, if you'd like to speak.
Thank you, Chair.
You have 5 minutes, Councillor.
First of all, I'd like to thank Bruno for his excellent presentation. It was very clear and helpful. This application is retrospective. The works are pretty much completed. I brought this case to you to ask, what is the point of the planning system if development can take place without the benefit of prior statutory consultee or parishioner input? For example, there are 8 objections from neighbours to this development, as outlined by the lady who just spoke. Concerns mostly around the size, construction of the extension and possibility of oversight of neighbours, light pollution, change of use of the garage and parking, air pollution. These points could have been debated during the standard planning application process, not after the event. A sunroom, especially with roof lights, which is used day and year round, even if it has less glazing, is more at risk of light pollution than an occasional used conservatory, especially as this house is in the AONB with its protected dark skies. It seems to me there are a couple of design guide points which could have been debated, had we the chance. The NNDC design guide says extensions should be cited to avoid loss of privacy for adjoining properties and that flat roof forms are not normally acceptable. The larch cladding seems out of keeping with neighbouring properties. The parking impact of the change of the garage to a study could have been debated. Also, the concerns regarding air pollution from the wood burning stove in the study, whose flue discharges underneath a neighbour's bedroom window, and concerns regarding light pollution from the garage roof light, which directly faces a neighbour's window. I understand there's some issues also with the foul water discharge from the study, given that it has to be pumped uphill to the mains. And I would like to point out that there was a comment from Conservation and Design on the variation between what is built and what is shown on the plans. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Holliday. It's open to members. We have Councillor Heinrich, followed by Councillor Mancini-Boyle, and then Councillor Pearce.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Could I just first ask officers to confirm my understanding that almost all of these works, with the possible exception of the cladding, fall under permitted development rights?
That's right.
So in other words, Chairman, all of this development could go on ahead without any need for planning application at all. Right? Am I correct on that, with the exception possibly of the cladding?
That's right.
Thank you.
Right, so we just reiterate that it's the cladding that's the problem, yeah, or the reason that the planning application came through. The rest of it was contained within permitted development. Councillor Mancini-Boyle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My main concern really is the flue aspect. I find it incredible that someone would even want to fit a flue on top of a low-level garage when there's 2-storey buildings all around them. I think it'll be an absolute nuisance, and we should be trying to get away from this type of installation because it's just not it's not great for the environment, and it's not great for the local residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Pearce. Oh, sorry, did you want to speak? You want to speak now? Yeah, sorry.
Chairman, members, the matter of flue extraction is a matter that is controlled through building regulations and will be subject to thorough control at the building regulation stage of this process. The planning application should consider the material visual impact of the stove pipe and its relationship, but I assure you members, the health implications and appropriateness of that flue extract will be considered through building regulations. Thank you.
Thank you for pointing that out. Councillor Pearce.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Obviously, very personally upset to find that it's under the permitted development, because I don't think long-standing development situations are compliant with the modern world. And Mr. Ralston knows my views on that, and I'll leave them there. But I do find that even the cladding of the extension now, does it break code EN8, protecting and enhancing the historic environment? Now, you may say it's not historical, but in 30 or 40 years' time, it will be. And this is going to stand out, as Prince Charles once said, like a carbuncle on the environment. I find this very, very upsetting. I mean, you've got a charming brick and flint cottage, and you're going to stick what amounts to be nothing more really than portacabin cladding on an extension, which is going to replace a conservatory, which the applicant got permission to retain. Now he wants to take it away. We haven't even got to the garage yet. I'm sorry, I personally on those score can't find agreement with the officer's recommendation on this one, and must be voting against it. Thank you.
Councillor Toy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wondered if I could just clarify with Officer Ralston, it was to do with its permitted development. If it wasn't for the question of the cladding, would building control still be involved under permitted development? I'm not sure of how that works. I'd just like to understand that.
Building control run in a different manner, Chairman. They look at the size and scale of the extension, and they will obviously look at the matter of flue extraction should that be required under building regulations. So I will consider that you have two buildings here that are likely to require building regulations approval. I'll pick that matter up with the building control manager, and I will ask that he casts an eye over these plans and advises appropriately.
Yeah, I was sorry. It's just really as much for my understanding for future reference as well. It's just that if it's permitted development, do they still have to have building control?
Sorry, I moved too quickly, John.
Yeah, no, sorry.
Building regulations and planning, two different beasts.
Yeah.
One to sheep, one to care. So the planning side of the issues will consider the planning permitted development allowances. Building regulations have work that can continue on a building notice, which will still be subject to building regulations consideration, or they have a building regulations application. So from that point of view, there will be some building regulations input. It will either be a building regulations notice or a formal application. Is that,
no, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure that for understanding that if someone goes on and does permitted development, which if it wasn't the question of the cladding, that those concerns raised by people were still covered by building regulations.
Important to note, Chairman, that building regulations looks at the structures of buildings, whether or not you need planning permission for that building or not. Still, the structure of the buildings and issues such as cladding, we all know about Grenfell, are considered appropriately under building regulations. So two very different beasts.
I appreciate that.
That will be subject to building regulations control for members.
Thank you, Mr. Rosen. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Is that clear to everybody about that we have the two separate considerations, planning, which we look at, and the actual building, which the inspectors look at, the building of the officers. Councillor Fitch-Tillett.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Good morning, everybody. I too share concerns in respect of light pollution. Obviously, it's something we're very keen on in the Norfolk Coast Partnership. I see that there will be prior agreement to external lighting. I would rather that there was no external lighting. If that can be conditioned, I would be very happy.
Chairman, I appreciate the point made by members, Councillor Fitch-Tillett. The position is the officer's report is balanced as it stands on the basis that a scheme for external lighting shall be submitted. That scheme will be expected to adhere to reasonable standards in dark sky areas. From our point of view as officers, your recommendation is as it stands. If as members you feel that the balance of this debate tips you towards no external lighting, then you may consider a condition. When considering additional conditions, members, please consider the reasonableness of those conditions. an awful lot of those contemporary properties, Bloomsdales do have external lighting. I'm not sure it would be reasonable or appropriate in my professional view to say that no external lighting could be applied. But members, it is a condition you can debate.
Do you wish to come back on that? Councillor?
If when members wish to support me, I'd be more than happy to. We can set a precedent here because why do we need external lighting these days? Everybody can carry a torch. How hard can it be at night if they're trying to get to their back door or their front door? We've all got torches on our mobile phones. So I don't see any necessity for external lighting in the dark skies area. But I'd like to propose that. But I will go with members' decision.
But we'll look at that when members have finished speaking. Yes, Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everybody. Thank you to the officer for his report and for his thorough presentation this morning. When I read this report, I was slightly actually surprised that this matter came before the committee. We know that we are under the development plan required to approve applications if they are policy compliant, unless there are material considerations which outweigh those matters. So I noticed there are no objections from the Parish Council. Each of the consultees find no reason to refuse this application. I gather that it's part retrospective because the applicants, I assume, firmly believe that it was largely permitted development. And it was maybe a surprise to them that the cladding wasn't permitted development and probably resulted in them making an application. So I'm slightly surprised that my colleague, the member for Coastal Ward, has actually brought this before the committee, because I think it could have been taken as a decision under delegation by the planning officer. We have to have faith in our planning officers. I do listen to the objections of the lady in a neighbouring property. The concern is genuine regarding the loss of parking, but the highways officer to the county council has responded to say that that isn't sufficient grounds to refuse the application in itself. A word of comfort for people who are concerned is that the timber cladding will weather over time. I accept at the moment it's probably quite prominent in appearance because it's new, but it will weather in. Its obtrusiveness, if I can put it that way, will diminish over time. And for that reason, I am minded to support the officer's recommendation, and I would like to propose that, Madam Chairman.
Right, I've put you down as proposer. Anybody seconding Councillor Brown? Councillor Henry? Now this will go to the vote on this for approval for this application, as stated on page 7, and with the recommendation, with the time limit, approved plans, materials to be in accordance with submitted details, and prior agreement of external lighting. John, we're just going to the vote, Madam.
Sorry, Madam Chair, I just wanted to pick up on the question of conditioning.
Well, that will come in.
Would that be later?
If we pass it, then we'll
Okay.
condition then, I think. Don't you, or do you want to condition before?
Chairman, technically, I'll take advice from the legal officer on the Constitution. Technically, you have a proposer and a seconder who appear to have proposed as per the officer report.
Okay.
You may wish to go back to the proposer to ask the question, did the proposer intend to include the question raised by Councillor Fitch-Tillett as an amendment to his proposal, or is he proposing the officer recommendation as it stands? Thank you.
Councillor Brown, could we come back to you?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have, as colleagues will know from past matters that we've dealt with, I have a lot of sympathy with Councillor Fitch-Tillett's comments as regards light pollution. I'm very enthusiastic about dark skies, as people realise. But there is national guidance on this. There are national standards. And I'm mindful that if we go against those, then we're potentially open to challenge. I would just ask the officers to negotiate a condition which is the best possible in the circumstances for this particular application. So I'm still
So what are you
content.
saying?
I'm still content to go with the proposal
As it stands,
as it stands with the officer's recommendation.
right?
I would like to amend it, but I am concerned about
Going against the,
about the consequences of doing that, providing the officers take extreme care and comply with national guidance. Then I think we've got to be satisfied with that.
okay, Fiona, what did you wish to say? Something?
I was just pointing out that the conditions to include restriction on installation of external lighting. So that's already in the officer's report to be one of the conditions.
Right,
I'm content with that, Madam Chairman.
you are, right, okay.
Yes, very quickly, very quickly. Yes, I was just going to say that under the recommendation, there have been 4 items that will be looked at anyway. So
Yeah.
I think that's been covered.
Yeah.
That's all I was
agree
going to
with
say.
that, yes. Okay, no, I'm afraid you can't speak again.
Wanted to correct a
Oh,
point of information actually that was made by one of my fellows.
Well, Victoria, all right, I'll let you speak.
I just wanted to say the parish council tried to object, but they were too late and they didn't realise that they could object other than on the portal, and they didn't realise they could object by email, so the comments didn't get put through.
Oh, right, well, that's just unfortunate that they didn't come through. Right, are we ready? Are you?
First and foremost, Chairman, I would say that we will be very pleased to speak with parish councils and try to enable them to be part of the planning process.
Yeah.
On the matter of the dark skies, we adhere to the guidance from the Institute of Lighting Engineers. It is national guidance. We will look at the best practice, and wherever possible, we will be making sure that the development will adhere to that and be enforced around those points. For the benefit of Councillor Holliday, who's called this application, we will make her aware of the issues, and the scheme of lighting is approved, and hopefully that then will make its way out to the wider community. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. And I agree that we really do have to respect our dark skies. They are most important. But I do notice that within the submission here, that the officer has said that the actual total glazing is less than the original glazing for the extant sorry, I thought you were, for the original extension. Sorry, I got interrupted there. So did that make any sense? No, okay, fair enough. So we have a recommendation, the proposer, Councillor Brown, seconded by Councillor Heinrich, that we go with the officer's recommendation to approve this application. Are we going with Emma? Are we doing just a hands up vote, or are we going with recorded? Roll call. Right, so can you start that off then, Linda?
Thank you, Chair. I will read your names in alphabetical order. Please say whether you're for, against or abstain. Councillor Brown.
For.
Councillor Fisher.
For.
Councillor Fitch-Tillett.
For.
Councillor Grove-Jones.
For.
Councillor Heinrich. Councillor Holliday. Councillor Lloyd. Councillor Mancini-Boyle. Councillor Pearce.
Against.
Councillor Toy.
Oh, sorry.
That was 4.
Thank you. Councillor Withington
4.
and Councillor Yassimi.
4.
Thank you. That's 9 in favour and 3 against.
Thank you,
That's
that is
carried.
passed. Thank you for those who came and spoke. We'll now go on to the next. You can go, yes, please, if you would want to go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we go on to the next applications. Is for Witham, PF/20/1228 on page 9, and the officer is Colin Rubin. Morning, Colin. Can you hear me?
I can indeed, yeah, thank you.
If you'd like to start.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone. Just a quick word before I start. I did get a warning message saying my internet connection is unstable. So if I do get cut off at some point, my apologies. So I'll crack on quickly. So this is item 8 on the agenda, which is application reference PF201228, which is presented on behalf of my colleague Liz Starling. The application proposes the retention of a garden building and decking area on amenity land associated with Parva Cottage on the street, Witham. The officer report can be found on pages 9 to 14 of the report pack, along with the accompanying presentation slides. The application does follow a previous application granted on the 20th of March 2020 for a lawful development certificate, which established the use of the application site, which is a long, narrow, rectangular parcel of land for private amenity purposes only in association with Parva Cottage. The building was erected on the site in 2018 as a replacement structure for 2 previous buildings, a garage constructed in 1973 and a replacement garden building erected in 2007-2008. The application states that the building is used for the purposes of garden storage, with the rear element and decking used to enjoy views of the garden and surrounding area. The principle of a building on the site is accepted given the established amenity use of the land and existence of previous, albeit smaller, buildings on the site. Turning to matters of landscape and conservation area impact, the site lies within both the designated Witherton Conservation Area and North Norfolk Area of Outstanding Natural Beauty. The building that currently stands on site replaced a previous smaller building and maintains a functional, typical summer house appearance. It is considered that the scale is acceptable, with the low-pitched roof, dark-coloured walls and small amount of glazing helping to minimise impact upon the conservation area and surrounding landscape, as well as protecting the special qualities of the AONB. Furthermore, no objections have been raised to the building by the landscape team in respect of impacts upon the wider landscape, AONB or undeveloped coast, nor by the conservation and design team in respect of any impact upon the Witherton Conservation Area. Furthermore, a mitigation planting scheme is also proposed to be conditioned, which will further minimise visual impact. Subject to conditions, the proposal complies with policies EN1, EN2, EN3, EN4 and EN8. The boundary with Sycamore Cottage, which is the nearest property, is approximately 12 metres from where the shed is located. It has been taken into account that the outbuilding is of a greater scale than the building which it replaced. Notwithstanding this, the building's form and design with a low projecting eaves helps to lessen its impact on the rear cottages and their outlook from their rear gardens. Any loss of light or overbearing caused by the increase in the outbuilding could not be regarded as significant given the separation distance, and as such would not justify a reason for refusal on amenity grounds under policy EN4. It should be noted that no external lighting is proposed in order to minimise light pollution and preserve dark skies, and again this is a matter to be conditioned. At present, the building is not a habitable structure with no insulation nor any residential use proposed. It is proposed to include another condition to ensure the building remains ancillary to Parva Cottage and is not used for any form of overnight accommodation. The applicant has also specifically stated that they have no intention to use the building for such purposes. Overall, to conclude, the officer recommendation is one of conditional approval as summarised on page 14 of the report. Just by way of an update, I do have an updated response from Witherton Parish Council, which I'm also happy to read out at the Chair's discretion at the appropriate point. I'm happy to do that now or when you see fit. Okay, Madam Chair, thank you very much.
Thank you, Colin. Yes, please, if you would read out the statement from the Parish Council now.
Okay, thank you. Witherton Parish Council is aware of further changes in this application. At the time the application was originally submitted, Witherton Parish Council put forward its comments to NNDC, which are on NNDC Planning Applications website. In summary, the Parish Council objected to the proposal. In the light of recent changes to the proposal, the Parish Council still believe its original comments remain valid. The Parish Council would support appropriate landscaping to reduce substantially its visibility to the south and east side and across the Glaven Valley. It would also support conditions imposed to reduce the impact of any lighting internally or externally on the dark night skies. It would support the imposition of conditions to restrict its use as ancillary to Parva Cottage and that it should not be used for rental such as holiday or permanent lets. Thank you.
Thank you. I now go to an objecting speaker, Marnie Ryder. If you'd like to come up, please. The microphone is on for you.
Yeah.
And you have 3 minutes from the time you start.
Hello, my name is Marnie Ryder. I am speaking on behalf of myself and my neighbour, Virginia Harrison, who can't attend today because she's at work. We both live in Sycamore Cottages 1 and 2, the street, Witherton, directly in front of the Parva Cottage site in question. I would like to put in our reiterated complaint against the oversized garden building constructed at the rear of our properties, just over 1 metre away from the boundary of 2 Sycamore Cottage Garden, not 12. Our objection still remains that the original size construction should never have been replaced by a building with almost twice the footprint and considerably higher than its predecessor, completely dominating the adjoining area. This large garden room is away from the owner's property and is currently only being used very occasionally. It is also totally out of place in the surrounding environment, which has been designated as an area of outstanding natural beauty. In relation to the proposed planting plan, no amount of hedge planting next to the building on the southern border will mitigate the fact that the extended building should never have been constructed in the first place. The proposal, if instigated, would further impede the south-facing light source to the gardens behind Sycamore Cottages. The hedging would completely change the panoramic openness of this natural environment. I have lived in my cottage for 40 years and appreciate the garden and the valley beyond every day. The construction of the building, ever since it was put up in 2019, has had a detrimental effect on both mine and Virginia's health and well-being. We feel hemmed in and restricted, and with the proposed hedge, this will only add to the feeling of claustrophobia. If the owners of Parva Cottage believe that by planting a hedge of over 2 meters in height in order to obscure the large building would make it possible for them to keep the building, then Virginia and I would strongly support the rejection of this planning application. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Ryder. If you'd like to return to your seat. I don't believe we have. Yeah, we've had that. Mr. Pegg, you're supporting this application. Would like to come up? We have 3 minutes from time and start.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. This application, as stated, follows on from a previously granted lawful development certificate issued in 2020 for the use of the land on which the garden building sits. Following previous consultation with the planning department, the current application seeks to retain this garden building on the site. This building is used as an incidental building in connection with Parva Cottage. The history of previous buildings on the site and on the same part of the site have been covered within the officer's report. This building replaces a previous structure, which also had a tiny shed sitting beside it when originally constructed in 2007-2008, along with a small decking area. And that building replaced a former asbestos garage dating back to 1973. When this current building was constructed in 2018, the intention of the applicant was to consolidate the space present in both the previous structure and the adjacent small shed, both of which required replacement. There was no intention to increase the size disproportionately or to act as anything other than a garden building primarily for storage. Of the objections received, it has been inferred that this structure was designed for habitation. This is simply not the case. The building has no insulation, power or water to it and no intention to supply. There is no external lighting present and none intended, as has been stated. And the applicant would also like to clarify that as and when the main property at Parva Cottage is let out, this building does not form part of the let and is not available to holidaymakers. It is solely for the use of the applicant and their family. A further concern raised was for the potential of a future change of use application to use this building as holiday accommodation, which again is not the case and could be controlled via a suitable planning condition which the applicant welcomes. The planning consultation phase has considered the concerns raised and in particular those relating to the design and the impact upon the wider AONB and the conservation area across the Glaven Valley. The consultation response is that this building is unlikely to have significant impact and does not conflict with the policies identified in the objections, subject to an agreed landscaping and planting proposal being implemented, which again the applicant welcomes and accepts. It's noted in the officer's report that measures have been adopted to assist in its integration within the wider landscape character, such as the scale and colour of the external walls, and also helping to protect the special qualities of the North Norfolk AONB. To ensure that these qualities are protected in the long term, the applicant confirms that an appropriate landscaping condition is achievable and wishes to undertake the suggested planting plan as submitted, but with further consultation with landscaping to address any concerns that may be raised to ensure the successful integration of landscaping within the wider context of the site. The conclusion of the officer's report is that the building is considered acceptable in terms of design, landscaping, heritage, highways, and amenity. And this could be reinforced through appropriate conditions. Thank you.
Would like to return to your seat. Now throw this open to the members. Is anybody wishing to speak? No one? Councillor Pearce.
Madam Chairman, through you, I would like to ask a couple of questions to our head of planning. And it concerns the vital question of right to light. We don't have a right to a view under planning laws, but we do have a right to light. Now, if the neighbours at the adjoining property to this have stated that the fact that their light is being blocked by this building, and it would be blocked by a further planting of possibly 2 metre, I'll go 7 foot, I'm imperial, I'm afraid, hedge, I think that needs looking into. Because I notice on here that the building is almost twice the size of the structure it places and overshadows and blocks the light to the neighbouring properties. I don't think you can block light under planning law. I'd like, first of all, Mr. Rowson some clarification on that before I go any further.
Chairman, through you, if I could ask the case officer to, if possible, could you put your presentation up on a shared screen, please, Colin, and show the location plan with the red and blue lines? That will help members see the relationship between the two properties.
I can certainly try. Bear with me. You'll have to bear with me a sec while I get to grips with my desktop.
Thank you, Colin. So members, you can see clearly that relationship and the relationship between Parva Cottage and the parcel of land that's subject to the lawful development certificate. You will then also see, as Colin has helpfully put up, the positioning of the new buildings. So that shows you the relationship of the properties between those two slides, which you will have in your pack. I've asked them to be put up so that members of the public can see your considerations as well. So from my point of view, Chairman, the issue of right to light is effectively the consideration of amenity. And the consideration of amenity is considered primarily through the building regulation, establishment, daylight and sunlight tests. This building is significantly set apart from the nearby dwelling, and it is the province of the consideration of the dwelling that is your primary consideration in decision making today. We have subsidiary legislation, the hedgerow regulations, that govern antisocial behaviour where hedges are grown to excessive heights. From my consideration, Chairman, I would suggest to you that the issue of amenity or right to light, as raised by Councillor Pearce, is adequately otherwise considered in the officer's report and the consideration of the recommendation. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. If I come back, Madam Chairman, thank you for that clarification. It was a question I felt had to be asked because of the comments made by the Speaker and also by Blakeney Parish Council in their original objections. So I asked it obviously for point of clarification. I don't like retrospectives, but Mr. Rowson, again, does this come under this permitted development and not used to planning situation?
Through you, Chairman, if this was permitted development, then the officers would have completed a process of discussing this with the applicant and would have otherwise have asked for the application to be withdrawn. We can determine applications which are permitted development by sections under the Town and Country Planning Act. My view in this particular case is this is not permitted development and does need permission to be here.
So it is a retrospective application?
It is indeed, Chairman. You have it described as such. Yes.
Well, you know my stance on retrospectives, and that still stands. Thank you.
I beg your pardon, Victoria, I forgot to ask you to speak before I opened it up to members. My apologies. If you'd like to make your statement now.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Apology, well accepted, don't worry. Well, I just wanted to comment again, that's another retrospective application with the same provisos with the previous one. And even though this may only concern a garden room, it's in a very sensitive location and there are local concerns regarding scale, amenity and heritage impacts. There are 8 objections to this application, which again could have been debated during the normal planning process. The main concerns being the building's size, which is twice that of the original garage, its overshadowing of and close proximity to neighbouring dwellings, its domination of the landscape, its design not being in keeping, the building detracting from the AONB and being highly visible from Cly across the Glaven Valley. And it doesn't fit with the Glaven Valley landscape character assessment, which says new development should be unobtrusive and readily accommodated into the landscape setting. I think we should debate landscape comments which hinge on the landscape mitigation requiring hedge plants to the south boundary and retaining scrub vegetation to the east. As the neighbour said, the hedge plants, if they grow to their desired 6 meters, will be quite intrusive on her property. And even if they do grow to 2 meters, it's going to take quite a long time, and that sunroom will be quite obvious during that period. But it's not the southern aspect that's a big issue here. It's the eastern aspect. The land falls away quite sharply from the decking across down into the valley. It really is almost it is in the valley, and the building's very clearly visible from Clyde. The photograph doesn't give that justice. And if the building has to be retained, scrub vegetation has to be more than scrub vegetation to prevent the impact of that large glazed area from across the valley, which is in the middle of the land of the Wiverton Conservation Area. So from a heritage landscape point of view, it really is quite an outstanding issue. So I would say if it is retained, I would hope for the following conditions, which would be no lighting, mains or otherwise, and the significant landscaping on the east as well as on the south. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Officer Rubin, does it not state that there is no electricity within this building? Yeah,
I believe it does, and as the agent has already stated in his statement, he said there's no light or power to the building.
so the dark skies situation doesn't exist here. Does anybody else wish to speak on this? Yes, Councillor Lloyd.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I noticed that there are two other sheds in the near vicinity already. I like the biodiversity gain that this application offers, and also that the pledge to not take this further into any sort of residential or holiday use. So I'm content with the application, happy to propose.
You propose acceptance. Is there a seconder for this application? Councillor Fitch-Tillett? No. Anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a question to Officer Philip Rosen. Is it possible to withdraw permitted development rights from this property in the future to check the, as it were, expansion creep, further possibility of further outbuildings, populating with a garden which is a substantial area of land?
Through you, Chairman. Permitted development rights are limited in AONB areas in any event. They are recognised as such. So AONB, national parks, conservation areas are within the same bracket and have limited permitted development allowances. The guidance on removal of permitted development allowances, Chairman, is one that needs clear and careful justification. It would need to be clarified as to exactly what was being removed here. I guess we would be talking about any further outbuildings being located on this parcel of land. I don't know if you would be looking at anything else. You can see that we've got a landscaping scheme, no external lighting to be introduced, and conditions requiring the building to be occupied along with Parva Cottage. It will be at your discretion, members, but I think you need to carefully caveat within the minutes of this meeting why it is that you would seek to restrict those permitted development allowances. Bear in mind, members, any condition can be appealed against, of course, and it does not necessarily mean that we won't see a further building in this location. It simply means that it would need an application. I can also see my dear colleague Colin is steadfastly raising his hand, Chairman, so please let him in.
Colin, over to you.
Thank you. It clarify in Liz Starling's report that, sorry, the previous granting of a lawful development certificate for the site did establish that the land doesn't benefit from any permitted development rights.
Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
That's sufficient. I mean, really, to my mind, this building looks very much like the old type of beach hut. Do you remember those when we used to go and sit in those in our soggy swimsuits? And we'd have a a Cala gas stove to actually heat a kettle, and that was about it. And the fact that there was no lighting, you had to smartly leave as the sun went down. So does anybody else wish to speak before I pass to Officer Rowson? Anybody else wishes to speak? No.
Thank you, Chairman. We've had members before voting today. I think it's important, given that we've had 2 retrospective applications in front of you today, and I appreciate the strong feelings expressed by some members. Possibly all members have those feelings today. We do firmly believe that the planning process must pay due respect to the interests of the local community. And I totally understand that the communities out there will feel somewhat askance when applications for retrospective development come about. They come about for a variety of reasons. People are obviously trying to game the system. Other people will make an application following an issue of ignorance of the law. Other people will not make retrospective applications and will test the enforcement processes. All I'm trying to say today, members, it is perfectly legitimate to make a retrospective application. And retrospective applications, as case law stands, should be considered without fear or favour on the basis of the planning policies that are in front of you. They shouldn't be looked at in any different way to a applicant who has adhered closely to the regulations and submitted a proposal before making the development happen. I know that that will be frustrating, but those are the rules, Chairman, and I think it's wise, having experienced the debate today, just to clarify that point for members. And we will certainly understand the members' concern, but it's important, members, to balance those concerns with where case law currently stands. That is where the case law is. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Officer Rowson. Now, are we all ready to go for vote? So we have a proposer to accept the officer's recommendation to approve from Councillor Lloyd, seconded by Councillor Fitch-Dillett. And we're going to have a roll call now, please.
Thank you, Chair. Again, I'll read your names in alphabetical order. Councillor Brown.
For.
Councillor Fisher. Councillor Fitch-Tillett.
For.
Councillor Grove-Jones.
For.
Councillor Heinrich.
For.
Councillor Holliday.
Against.
Councillor Lloyd. Councillor Mancini-Boyle. Councillor Pearce.
Against.
Councillor Toy.
For.
Councillor Withington. And Councillor Yassini.
For.
That's 9 in favour and 3 against. Thank you.
Thank you. That has been passed. And thank you to the speakers for coming today. If you'd like to leave, because we're going to go into other matters now. Right.
Thank you, Chairman. Agenda item 9, members, on page 15. You will see that I am reporting to you as a committee on development management performance. In discussion with portfolio holder, Councillor Toy, it was agreed that I would carry forward monthly reporting on performance for this committee. This is occurring at an opportune moment, members, because you can see from the report in front of you that there are issues with the performance of our development management and majors teams. You will see the report explains where those issues have arisen, in my view, and how, in some respects, we will begin to look at managing those issues. Some of those measures are already in place. The report also details the consideration of performance as matters of both speed and quality. So when you look at those issues, you will see on matters of speed, the determination of major applications stands at 80% against a performance standard of 60%. I would say to you that on majors performance members, I expect that that will and can improve. It is currently at a low ebb and is a situation where the majors manager and his team are refocusing on performance. You will see in the report that no significant amount of decisions have been recently made on major developments. That is an issue which I picked up with the manager, and the manager has agreed to communicate and has attained extensions of time on those cases which are coming forward in the very near future. That should mean that decisions, for example, on the large Fakenham scheme for the college, that case will be determined within an extended time frame. The majors applications, as you're aware, members, will take longer to determine. They are frequently more complex and will often require legal agreements to support them. On that basis, there is an expectation that extensions of time period will normally need to be agreed to cover those majors decisions. Moving on from majors, you will then see that we have non-major developments, a fairly binary consideration, but that is the consideration the government gives us for performance. And you will see in the report, members, that we've experienced poor performance over 2 quarters, which is substantively below the 70% expected of the council by the MCHLG. Those performances are improving, and I can report to you, members, that in this next quarter, sorry, I've made lots of notes today, I'm turning over my pages. In this next quarter, as we currently stand, 149 decisions have been made. 49 of those are within 8 weeks, and 74 of those have required an extension of time. The figures then for the next quarter coming forward through July and August stand currently at 123 in time, 26 out of time. That's 83% within extensions of time or under agreed extensions. Globally, then, that will give us a position where our 78% figure is sustained currently. My expectation as the non-majors team refocus on these issues, and that those of us who are reviewing and reporting these decisions, that we will then be able to ensure that more decisions are made within the 8-week period, and that where extensions of time are required for non-major development, that those will then be achieved within the extended time period. I accept and understand it is extremely poor business practice to agree an extended period and then fail to deliver within that extended period, and our officers are reminded of those matters. So, members, closing on my quick presentation to you, you've had the report, hopefully you've had a chance to consider it. I'll be very happy to take your comments and questions, and also I would ask you, members, to be appraised of what I consider the reasons for this performance issue, and also the issues that we're seeking to address and the actions taken. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you. Has anybody any comments to make on this report? Oh, Mr. Mancini Boyle, and then Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be very brief on this. I've noticed in April 20, with 25% down. I'm assuming, is this a staffing level issue and a COVID issue? Is that why they're down so much, Mr. Ralston?
Thank you. That's a generous interpretation, Chairman. There have been some implications. You'll see that we report illness of senior staff and 2 case officers, and undoubtedly processes have been lengthened as a result of COVID. We require questionnaires to be completed before officers can get on the site. However, we have more significant issues, which I think, in my view, have implicated on performance over that period. The report expands on the issue of software introduction. It talks about delays in consultation responses coming back, and also significant increases in numbers. I'd also say, members, as a group of officers, we're accountable for that. And it's important that we do take responsibility for poor performance. And I don't want to walk away from that point today, Chairman.
Yeah, thank you for your honest response, Philip. Thank you.
Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I'd just like to pick up on the software updates section 4.2 on page 19. We've had this system now since December. I think it's a valid question to raise, and it's this. Has this system been commissioned in the correct manner? Have we had the right support from the company that helped to install this with us? Is our training adequate? Where are we on that? Have all officers been trained, or if not, where are we? Because I distinctly remember Officer Sarah Ashurst, who is not with the service anymore, saying that this would significantly improve efficiency and would enable the department to move forward and deal with applications more expeditiously. 9 months on now, and I just do not feel that that is happening. So that is a concern that I have. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Chairman. I think what you're looking at is some historic reporting there. And I think Councillor Brown will be aware that in December and then again in May, that the system had to be switched off periodically. I think we probably all have experienced some of that as you were looking to access the system. The problem is when you turn off a planning application system, you then have a rippling effect through the process. So it will take longer for those cases to be validated, then those cases will be delayed in terms of getting onto planning officers' desks. From that point of view, the effect of turning off the system and turning it back on has had a rippling effect. Turning to the questions raised by Councillor Brown, have we had the right support from IDOCs? Not throughout the process, Chairman. No, we haven't. Towards the end of the process, I believe we have had appropriate support from IDOCs, and we continue to use IDOCs through their help desk process where there are issues with the system. Councillor Brown, you yourself have raised issues that we have chased up through the troubleshooting desk. Is it a 100% success? No, it isn't. There are areas that we can improve on. Is training adequate? I think an honest answer to that, members, before the system was delivered, is that the training was not adequate. There were concerns from all involved that the time wasn't available to train the officers and deliver the project. You'll recall, Councillor Brown, you were in post at that time as portfolio holder, and we had to make some difficult decisions. We're coming up to speed with training. Training has occurred for a number of the practitioners. And it's not just development management that this impacts on, it impacts also across the board on issues such as property information. And you'll notice that property information has extremely quick turnaround on these matters. So from my point of view, I think that training will continue to be delivered. We're delivering training on the mapping element of uniform. We will be delivering training for the planning processing unit to assist with enforcement matters and to enable those matters to be plotted, which will help speed up the matter of enforcement. So looking at the offer of significantly improved efficiency, clearly the pattern you see in front of you is not significantly improved efficiency. The system has had teething problems. Officers have required more training. What I'm in a position of saying to you today is that I believe that I'm reporting improved performance since the May update was delivered on the system. And so from that point of view, my view is that there is an improvement of performance and efficiency coming forward, and I will continue reporting to you on a monthly basis. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Answer your question?
Yes, it does allay some of my concerns. I just wonder in a sense how long we can put down the difficulties in the change between the two systems down to teething problems. Teething problems are, in my experience in private business, are time limited, and we are 9 months on. So I do have a concern there. Chair.
We do seem to have problems when we put in computer systems. I go back some time now, as several of you know, and we had a new finance system going in at one time, and it was going to be tied up with King's Lynn, and it proved a complete disaster, and we had to abandon, which of course cost us money. That's the trouble with these systems. If they're not fully tested before they go in, then and they get glitches, etc., it costs money. Anyway, Councillor Pearce. Oh, yeah.
Please, members, my explanation here is not that these performance figures arise solely because of the software system. It really isn't that. Thank you.
Councillor Pearce.
Madam Chairman, I address Mr. Rowsell through you. I thank you for your honesty in these reports. You know, we do want to be a progressive, forward-looking council, despite what some people may think of certain members, including on objections on things. I do note there's been several major factors. COVID, integration of a new system, what Councillor Brown said about training and everything else, but you still haven't flinched from the black and white figures, Mr. Rowson. And at the end of the day, I would just like to say from this person, I'm sure from every other member, the improvement that you seek is something that we all desire. We desire it with a passion because we want to do the best we can when we meet, not only when we meet here once a month or possibly twice every Thursday. It is a worry, and for that matter alone, I think possibly, and I will make this, I think that this should have been held under an exempt item where it should have been put over on YouTube or the internet, because we've got to get it right. I don't believe in hiding. I also believe that application to improvement is best done with a united front. And I do think sometimes airing out in the general public at this early stage is not always the best thing. However, I commend you for what you've done, what you've said, and I look forward to these improvements, as you and I have already discussed on a private meeting. And it is what I consider to be consensual politics. We don't politicise the development committee, and nor will I here. I want, through everybody else, to see those improvements. So once again, I commend you for your honesty. Thank you, Mr. Rowson.
Thank you. Councillor Lloyd, and then I have Councillor Heinrich and finally Councillor Toy. So Councillor Lloyd.
Yeah, well, firstly, I'd like to congratulate John Toy and Philip. I've been sitting on the planning committee for a number of years. I've never seen such data presented to me in this format. This is a first for this council, and I congratulate this administration for doing that. I also note that there have been a large increase in applications because compared to other years, which is another issue. But the fact that this will be reported regularly to us, I think is only a positive thing, and keep everybody on their toes. Regarding software, my experience with software, big software changes in work, were that unless you're fully resourced up, it takes some time to actually get the benefits that you were hoping for on paper at the start of the operation. They're big projects, a lot of learning, but I'm hopeful now that putting the training in that we should see some real benefits from that investment. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lloyd. Councillor Heinrich.
Again, thank you for this very comprehensive report, and I'm pleased to say that we're doing it in public session. I think it's important that we're as open and transparent with the public as we can possibly be, and that is crucial. The only query I would have is about communication with applicants where things are delayed. And yes, we can blame COVID for some of that. Officers working at home, maybe short on resources at times, but I do feel we need to make regular contact with applicants where there are delays for whatever reason. Even if to say an officer is off sick, we are going to be 2 weeks late getting back to you. That way we are dealing directly with them, not just leaving people, as one in my ward said, being left for several months with no contact. So we just ask that we try and improve that communications aspect, and I'd be very happy. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that is a very valid point, Councillor Henrik. You know, our people keep pointing. What pointing at? Is it you again?
I was waving like an umpire at a test match. It was terrible. I think that was a leg by there, Chairman. The situation, I entirely agree with Councillor Heinrich, is one where improvement must be made in communication with our customers. Some officers are really good at that, and I need to say that today, but other officers, perhaps through pressure of work and difficult messages, maybe less so. I will be meeting with each team involved in these performance issues over the next 2 weeks, and that will be a key message that I will be taking forward, and I will be requiring that applicants are contacted as soon as possible after the closure of the consultation periods, and that before any decision is made, that applicants, their representatives will be contacted so they know the direction of travel that applications are moving down. We will also discuss the opportunities to communicate more effectively with parish councils and other third parties involved in the process. I agree, members, communication is critical here, and this hasn't been as good as it could have been. Councillor Toy and I have spoken on a number of occasions, and this is an area, along with performance that talks about quality and speed, is a key hallmark to how we deliver our services in North Norfolk. So I take the point, and I will be emphasising that with our officers. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, and I fully endorse that. You know, these are our clients, they're paying money. We should be keeping them up to speed. I think we've all experienced applicants who come through to us in frustration because they couldn't get any answers. But they are the minority. The majority of people, I feel, are handled well and get the information that they require. Now, John, do you want to speak next, or will you let Liz speak before you, if you're going to sum up? It's up to you.
I wasn't necessarily summing up as portfolio holder. Philip and I have plenty of meetings as portfolio holder. I was just going to make some comments. I'm happy to go.
All right, make some comments then.
No, but obviously, I'm grateful that Officer Rowson has brought this good, honest report to us. We've tried to build a relationship on honesty. I think it's the best place, and I'm pleased that people support that. There has been, the upgrade was huge. It was not a new piece of software that was plugged in. We've gone from, Commodore 64 ZX80 to the very latest technology. So it's a huge step. So that's a huge requirement in terms of training and adaptation as well. Along with that, we've then had all the COVID. And so it's not a perfect storm, but there's an awful lot of things that come into that. But on balance, we must balance the number of applications that have been decided. We never hear from the satisfied customers. So that's why I've tried to report at full council that that's the case. And that is still the case. In terms of it being in the public domain, actually, you can get these figures from the MHCLG website. They are reported there. It is in the public domain. But it's best that we talk about it. I think going forward, it's good that we bring it here regularly so that we can keep up to speed with what's going on. But also that we need to, I will hopefully still continue to report to full council the reality that actually we are doing much of it. We tend to look at, when we look at numbers, we tend to look at the bad and not the good. So there is good acknowledgement, we've got processes going forward. Thank you to Officer Rosen and to his officers that put in great work. We all know that there's things that need doing. If we share that information either directly or through this forum here, then we can make those improvements that we all seek and desire. So thank you, and thank you again, Officer Rosen.
I must say that I do have people, applicants who are, with their applications are approved, do come through to me and say thank you. So that's good. It's nice to know that we don't just get all the people who are dissatisfied. There are people who are satisfied.
And it's important we share that as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You want to come in again?
I'm aware, members, that officers will watch this, and they need to hear from me that I know that there are good reports about their performance.
Absolutely.
And it's not just speed we're dealing with quality, and the decisions that are made are robustly defended through the appeal process. And that should be another issue that we take within the proper context. The record that this council has on the matter of appeals is exemplary. So I think the officers also need me to say to you members, because they will watch this, that they are delivering excellent performance in those wider areas. And there are many good reports of good officer contact and positive relationships. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Yes, I fully ratify that. Councillor Withington.
Thank you. I have to apologise. I'm struggling with my voice. Yeah, some of you will say I talk too much. So I wanted to pick up on point 4 on the capacity issue. We've obviously had increased capacity, and I know people have commented that everyone's been doing things because of COVID, etc. But I'm glad to see in 4.5 that that's going to keep coming back up, because I think we are in a changing time at the moment in North Norfolk, and I'm sure with all of us in our parishes, we're aware that, you know, certainly in Sheringham, we're getting endless side extensions, rear extensions. So I think because we have a shortage of housing, we have increased pressure from growing numbers of second homes, from holiday lets, that I can't see this workload diminishing. I think it's only going to increase. And I think it's really important that we acknowledge that. And I'm going to stop because it's going.
Oh dear. Thank you, Liz. Yes, I think we can say, yes, we are anticipating increased demands on our officers. And I think we are looking at possibly, or we are looking at appointing 1 or 2 more trainees, I think.
Through you, Chairman, we do have an element of churn in the planning team. That's natural. It does occur in a lot of planning departments. That will give opportunities for natural progression and for officers to be promoted into more senior positions. We've seen some of that. Councillor Toy and I have met. We talk in a portfolio holder group with the Chairman and Councillor Brown as well. So it is important to allow that natural progression. When that does occur, there are opportunities coming up. We've got an opportunity for a trainee planning officer and assistant household planning officer coming up. And I think probably an opportunity for a planning officer. As capacity rises, as capacity is challenged, I should say, then it's right that we do look at the numbers. And I have Councillor Toy's steadfast support in terms of taking that argument forward if a business case can be proven. At the moment, I'm going to keep reporting back to you, and we will talk about whether or not there is a need to bolster that capacity. And certainly that would make you very popular with our officers, I think.
Thank you. So the recommendation actually is for members to note this report, which I think we duly do, and we look forward to the next one. Are they going to be monthly, Philip?
Certainly are, Chairman, and hopefully not that long.
Good.
Again, so
Excellent.
we need to report to you. You're a key part of our process, our group, our team. So it's important that you're appropriately briefed.
Now I'm going to call a halt for 10 minutes because I understand we have some coffee available. Where is it? Please, if you wouldn't mind, do you want some help? And just bring the coffee in. Yeah, okay. Is that all right? Yes. Are you sure? Okay, we just carry on. Okay. Then we can have some coffee. Okay. Officer Rowson will speedily take us through the agenda item 10.
Chairman, not influenced by caffeine, but the fact that we've gone a little longer today because of our last debate, I would propose that we take the appeals section as read and that I then take any questions or comments. I have got some comments to raise about housing, land supply and our policies. We've had a very recent appeal decision in the last couple of days that helps with particularly the questions raised at Aylmerton. But I'm going to come on to that after you've raised any questions or comments on the appeals in front of you.
Anybody, any questions? Yes, Councillor Pearce.
Through you, Madam Chair, and Mr. Rowson, I see on the appeals here, even on the first page, we've got 3 appeals that obviously are for people that wish to change buildings to dwelling houses for the future. Has that significantly increased? I mean, I'm sure it has, but it wasn't a silly question because obviously they cost us a lot of time and money when they appeal against a decision that we would reject. But I see 3 here, and there's obviously others coming through the system. We see these do seem, in my mind, to be increasing quite significantly.
My experience, Chairman, is there is pressure in the planning system currently. That was brought about by the introduction of the prior notification process about the change of use of buildings in the countryside, primarily agricultural buildings. What we do find, Chairman, and you will see as members, you will see that prior notifications are achieved and then people want to change the buildings. Once they've got the prior notification, they sort of use that as a backstop and then try to expand under planning policies to create a principle for wider change to the building and more ambitious schemes. So it's certainly something we are seeing through challenge, but we have a good reputation in terms of dealing with prior notification appeals and also appropriate consideration of the planning applications that may then follow afterwards. Thank you.
Is that okay? Anybody else? Yes, Councillor Toy.
Yeah, just on that same point and the point that Councillor Withington was making before, I'm certainly aware within my ward, I don't know the overall picture, something I was going to discuss with Officer Rowson later, but the conditioning, when people have sheds, garages, these conversions that I've seen several where people have applied for it, it's sent to the house, next thing you know, they're advertising it for let. Which puts weight on our enforcement team when we have to go and revisit it. So it's to make sure that whether that is a growing trend, which we'll need to look at the numbers for that, and whether there are appropriate actions we can take to make sure that it's properly conditioned going forward. But we also understand, as Councillor Withington says, there's not the money, there's not the space, there's not the houses. So we need to understand what the need is for North Norfolk as well. So just all I'm saying is that I understand these questions and we are looking at it to see what we can do and where it fits in things at the moment. I don't know if Officer Rose has got anything to add immediately. Thank you.
I would echo those comments, and it is an issue in rural 35 years doing this. There's always pressure for conversion of buildings. Housing is very valuable now and it is an issue that will continue. Chairman, did you catch Councillor Holiday, I think, wanted to speak?
No, I didn't. You're right behind Councillor Williams.
I know,
so
I'm
I
invisible. Yeah, thank you.
see.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to Mr. Rowson, have you got an update on the date for Arcady? Because I get asked about it. Thank you.
The date for the application to be determined.
For the new, I know, for the new consultation, the new review of the new revised
I'm
plans.
meeting with the landscape and design officer today. We have had a further set of drawings submitted after we responded to the last set of amendments. So the applicants are moving through one final set of amendments, I believe, and then we should be looking at consultation. I hold to try to get the case forward in September. However, members, you are likely to see requests for the reserve date to be used in October. I will keep you specifically brief Councillor Holiday as ward member of when those amended plans are to be expected. Unfortunately, the process has been drawn out by the applicants trying to achieve a successful set of amendments to address all of the concerns of consultees and officers.
Does that answer you?
Yes, thank you very much indeed.
Okay. Have we finished with the appeals section? Is everybody content with what has been said? We now go to number 11, urgent business. I don't think there is any other urgent business. No.
One point to raise, Chairman, very quickly. I'm sorry, I keep jumping in. If that's okay. We had an appeal at Ale Merton that we reported to you recently, and I think I've mailed a couple of members, I think, Victoria, sorry, Councillor Holiday, I mailed you specifically as well, and the ward member for Ale Merton. We're in a situation where a very recent appeal has come back to us, the application for a planning permission in principle, you might recall, out at North Walsham. And the planning permission in principle was approved by the inspector. He decided that there was a case that he considered was appropriate. So that is understood, but the important point that that appeal inspector gave was that the appeal inspector found that the council's policies were considered to be up to date with the very latest version of the MPBF, and that he considered that the council had a sustainable housing land supply. So, members, the position at Ale Merton is already challenged. I would brief you, Chairman, that we've written to the Planning Inspectorate, and I'm happy to share a copy of that letter that relates to the Ale Merton decision. That was some 3 to 4 weeks ago, and we await the Planning Inspectorate's response. We were very disappointed with that inspector's decision at Ale Merton, but respect, of course, the right of the decision maker to make those decisions. Thank you, Chairman. Hopefully that is helpful advice and gives you security around the decision making of this committee on the basis of our core strategy.
Yes, just to also add that there is an appeal decision on page 23 where the Hickling petition was dismissed. So that's good to know. Back to the agenda. No exclusion of press and public, and no private business, and no exemption matters to be discussed.